Disney and Deceit. So Deceit joins the other sides for Friday movie night for a new game Roman creates, but Virgil and Patton aren't exactly thrilled with his presence. Chapter 1. I'm so glad you two have come around. This is going to be so much fun. I've even devised a new game for us to play so we can get to know Deceit a little more. Roman was smiling widely as Virgil and Patton told him they'd decided to come to family movie night like normal. Virgil shrugged and Patton felt a pang of guilt in his heart. Roman was so happy, happier than Patton had seen him in a while, now that he thought about it. Even now he had a spring in his step, bouncing between the kitchen and the living room, preparing food and drinks and changing around the common room to seat everyone comfortably. It was for the best, he reassured himself. Roman was just blind with the praise Deceit always laid on him. They would save him before the snake could turn on him like Virgil told him he would. Of course! Is there anything I can help with, kiddo? Patton offered, and Roman shook his head. Nope, I've got everything under control. You and Virgil can just hang out in the living room while I go get Logan. The prince practically skipped past them and down the hall towards Logan's room. Virgil and Patton sat down on the sectional, glancing at each other for a moment to reassure themselves. Virgil, this is good, right? Patton whispered, his throat tight. Virgil put his hand on top of Patton's, squeezing it softly. You're not sure? The anxious side tried to hide his surprise. Since when did Patton not know? He was morality. That was his purpose. I mean, what if they get angry at us for this? Virgil sighed. That thought had crossed his mind too, and it didn't make him feel good. As long as they're safe, it doesn't matter, right? It's that, or they get sucked into whatever game Deceit is playing and we lose them completely. Patton nodded slowly. Right. We won't let that happen. The emotional side didn't know if he would be able to handle Logan or Roman being angry at him. But Virgil was right. They had to keep them safe from Deceit. I've got him! Roman called out as he entered the room, dragging Logan behind him. Our resident nerd was once again planning on skipping on movie night. Logan rolled his eyes, pulling his arm from Roman's grip. I was planning no such thing. I simply lost track of the time. I'd appreciate you not implying otherwise. Oh, so you do like spending time with us. I thought you thought Disney movies were annoying and childish, Roman teased. They are overly optimistic and fanciful, not to mention unrealistic. However, they are a suitable way to pass the time if you enjoy not having to think for 2 hours. It was both a compliment and an insult, but Roman took it in stride. Sure, whatever, you know you love it. Anyways, let's get comfortable. Roman waved his hand and his clothes shifted from his normal princely attire to his Christmas sweater and red sweatpants. Logan followed suit as he took a seat on the other side of the sectional, curling up in his sweater and pants and opening the book that he'd taken from his room. Patton grinned and shifted as well, but instead of the Christmas sweater, he shifted into his cat onesie. He had very few chances to wear it anymore, and it was just so warm and cuddly. Virgil, on the other hand, didn't change at all. When Roman came into the room and set the snacks down, he pouted, but Virgil shrugged. I'm already comfy enough, Princey. But... Virgil raised his eyebrows, but Roman didn't finish the thought, instead rolling his eyes at Logan, who'd pulled out a book. Really, Matilda? Did you take that with you just so you could ignore us? Logan didn't look up. No, I'm only reading until all of us are here. There's no point in starting any activity you have planned until Deceit arrives. If that's the case, let's get the party started. The four of them looked up at Deceit, who'd entered the room while Logan and Roman were squabbling. The snake-like side took a look at the four of them and smirked slightly. Looks like I didn't get the memo about the dress code, Deceit teased. Roman gasped. Oh, I'm sorry, I totally forgot to tell you. If you'd like, I can design a sweater for you too. Deceit's mouth twitched for a moment into a genuine smile. Really? You'd do that for me? Well, I suppose I can accept. On one condition, he purred, and Roman nodded heartily. What's that? You design a sweater, but I get to change the rest. I'm rather creative too, you know. Deceit winked, and Virgil could feel his chest burning when he heard the flattered giggle that came from Roman. The creative side thought for a moment before flourishing his hand towards Deceit, who snapped at the same time. The result was a yellow and black sweater divided right down the middle. There were two snakes curled back and forth across the color divide, one black and one yellow. The yellow half was on the left and had black lines, indicating scales all down the half of his chest and left arm. The collar, bottom edge, and arm cuffs were the opposite color of the main sweater. The way the sweater was cut, it hung lower on his neck than Deceit's normal outfit, and the others could see how his scales trailed down his neck, disappearing into his collar. Aside from Roman's very fitting sweater design, Deceit now wore black sweatpants, thick fuzzy yellow socks, and a yellow beanie with black stitching. He had, however, kept his signature yellow gloves. Patton couldn't help but admire the sweater design. Roman had clearly put just as much thought into this one as he had into the others, which either meant he was incredibly good at thinking up designs on the fly, or that when he designed the sweaters, he'd design them for all of the sides. Virgil, on the other hand, was not impressed. Do you two always have to be so extra? Roman spun to spit some retort at him, but Deceit stepped forward and patted Roman's shoulder gently, grinning. He's just jealous that my sweater looks better than his. Incredible work as always, Roman. The prince glowed at the praise. Why, thank you! I was hoping you'd like it. Deceit nodded, then turned to the side and noticed Logan was watching him with curious eyes. The lying side smirked and put a hand on his hip, striking a natural pose. Like what you see, Logan? I'm certainly curious about your scales. Do they extend down the entirety of your body? Deceit could physically feel the anger coming from the other side of the couch and decided this was too good an opportunity to pass up. He licked his lips and wiggled his eyebrows. I'd be happy to show you sometime, Logan. Deceit purred low, and Virgil slammed his hands down hard on the coffee table, rattling everything. That's enough of that! Roman, can we just start now? Deceit's here, unfortunately. Virgil sneered as Deceit snickered at his outburst and sat down in the corner of the sectional. Patton cast a sideways glance at him, watching him with careful consideration as Deceit turned his attention to Roman, standing in front of them all ready to explain his game. Okay, so I was thinking about it, and I realized that we may all know Deceit, but we don't really know him. So I've created a brilliant game, Disney-themed, of course, to help us get to know each other. Roman waved his hand and conjured 5 patches, each a side's logo. He shuffled them around like cards in his hands while he talked. I'll hand out these badges blindly, and once you have one, we'll go around and you have to pick a Disney character that you think represents the person best. What if we pick ourselves? Patton asked. Then you choose someone to compare yourself to. Oh, and this is just Disney. No Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, anything like that. We're staying classic. Sounds fun, Deceit hummed. Roman beamed. We'll do a couple rounds. Once we finish one, we'll pass to our right and go again. Now, close your eyes and pick a logo. Roman fanned them out, and Logan humored him, closing his eyes and picking blindly. He drew a purple storm cloud, which he fiddled with absently as Roman moved on. Deceit drew a red and gold crest. Patton drew a brain with glasses, and Virgil drew a 2-headed snake. It left Roman with a heart with glasses, and he grinned. All right, everyone's got one. Who wants to start? They were quiet for a moment as everyone thought, and Roman fidgeted as he started to worry that maybe the others wouldn't play along with this game, wouldn't enjoy it as much as they thought he would. Is this a bad idea? Deceit saw the distress building on Roman's face out of the corner of his eye and opened his mouth to start, but Virgil beat him to it. Easy. Deceit is the villain from Princess and the Frog. The lying side in question raised an eyebrow. Dr. Fusilier? Wow, Virgil, I'm so surprised you chose a villain to compare me to. You've got a stupid hat, weird glowing powers, and a look that puts everyone on edge. I think it fits you perfectly, Virgil snarled, but to his annoyance, Deceit just grinned. Aw, I'm honored you think so highly of me. However, it does give my suggestion an unwanted connotation. I was going to suggest that you, Roman, were just like Prince Naveen. Roman blinked. Oh yeah? A dashing prince who gets in a little over his head, who falls in love and spends his time trying to woo the person he's been on this journey with, not to mention willing to sacrifice being with the person he loves to make sure that they're happy. Oh, and fluent in a love language as well. Deceit counted off on his fingers as Roman grew more and more red. Hearing Deceit explain his choice made his heart nearly burst from the praise, but he cleared his throat and tried to hide just how good it felt to hear his words. You make a compelling argument. Oh, and his singing voice is rather divine as well. We can't forget that, Deceit added, and Roman nearly burst into flames. He coughed awkwardly, taking the opportunity to hide his wide grin behind his hand. Well, I think Patton's just like Cinderella's fairy godmother, he spluttered, moving the focus away from him. The side in question lit up, bouncing slightly in his seat. Aw, that's sweet, Roman. Well, you're sweet, and you'd do anything to help someone like Cinderella achieve her dream, and you would totally make a pumpkin into a carriage. Patton giggled. True. Bippity-boppity-boop, he sung, tapping Virgil's nose to the other's confusion. Well, I got Logan, and I thought of Mary Poppins. Logan pursed his lips. Really? Yes, she's organized, and she knows exactly what to do to make sure their kids get the work done. She's also calculated enough to realize when she needs to leave and detach from the situation to move on to the next problem, Deceit added, and Logan blinked, considering it. I suppose, although I cannot imagine singing the songs in that movie, they're somehow more ridiculous than any other Disney film. Says the guy who spent almost 10 minutes singing about a jelly brand, Deceit muttered, and Roman snickered. Logan kept his face neutral, though the tips of his ears did turn pink. He cleared his throat. Logan looked at Virgil. Well then, I believe that just leaves me. I believe Jack Skellington from The Nightmare Before Christmas is a good fit for you. Is this just because I've got a poster of the movie in my room? Virgil asked. Partially, yes, I know you enjoy the movie. However, I believe you do share some traits with the protagonist. Roman tilted his head. Really? I would have put him as Sally if I had to pick someone from that one. Yes, well, I find it an accurate metaphor for your joining our little group. Everyone's attention was on Virgil, so nobody caught how Deceit's jaw tightened ever so slightly at Logan's words. You were stuck in your own little world, feeling isolated until you came across something new and exciting. However, your entry into this new world was rocky, one might say. The details of the movie muddle the metaphor, and perhaps the ending isn't truly reflective of our truth, but regardless, I feel it's suitable. Wow, Logan, that was a detailed analysis, Virgil said slowly, glancing quickly at Deceit, but seeing only his trademark grin on his face. I thought that was the point of the game, Logan asked, confused. You did wonderfully, Logan. In fact, I think your choice was the most accurate out of all of us, Deceit complimented him, and the logical side adjusted his glasses quickly. That's kind of you, Deceit. Beside him, Patton could feel Virgil tense up. He subtly nudged his leg against the anxious sides, trying to convey some encouragement through the touch. Well then, let's pass to the right. This time, let's put a new rule in place. You have to name a princess that the person is like, or a female main character, even if they don't have the title of princess technically. For this, characters like Pocahontas and Moana are princesses, even if that's not technically their title. Roman explained eagerly. That hadn't gone horribly, and forcing them into a narrower focus, hopefully he could avoid a spat between Virgil and Deceit. The sides all passed their badges to the right, and Deceit immediately smirked and held up his brain logo, leaning forward. Well, this one is just too easy. Belle, Beauty and the Beast. Logan narrowed his eyes. Too easy? She's the only one in town who reads, and also seems to be the only one with a smidge of common sense. The logical side groaned. Yes, but she also fell in love with a monster who essentially kidnapped her and held her captive. Roman threw his head back and rubbed at his eyes. We are not starting the Stockholm Syndrome argument again. Not tonight. Logan shut his mouth. Clearly, he'd been about to argue that very point. Fine then. Regardless of that, the very fact that she fell in love with him... Oh, that's right. I forgot. You're an emotionless robot who doesn't feel anything. Unfortunately, there's not many Disney princesses who are like that, so I had to make do with the princess who forces the prince to respect her as a person before she starts falling for him. Deceit's tone was more forceful than the others expected, and it startled them a bit. Logan especially leaned back, unsure why he sounded so frustrated. I didn't mean... Bella's fine, Deceit waited, but Logan trailed off. Never mind. Anyways, I have myself this round, and I have just one thing to say. Merida. That is all. The others rolled their eyes, but let it be. It was a pretty decent fit. I got myself too... How am I supposed to pick a princess? They're all way too fluffy for my taste, Virgil mumbled, flipping the patch over and over between his fingers. What's wrong with being fluffy? Patton asked, pouting. Nothing, it's just not me. Megara, Roman exclaimed. Ooh, that's a good one, Roman, Deceit hummed, and Virgil considered it as Roman explained. She's smart, sassy, doesn't take any crap from Hades, and she only does what she does because she made a deal with Hades to save and protect the one she loved. It maybe didn't turn out so well, but she got a happy ending. Virgil considered it and seemed to accept it with a shrug. Sure, whatever. Patton, I have you, and I believe Princess Jasmine from Aladdin fits you rather nicely. Logan spoke, and Patton turned to him. Really? Oh, I love her. She's so pretty. Yes, well, one of her defining characteristics is her intense hatred for being lied to and treated like an object rather than a person. Patton tensed up at the mention of lying, and he intentionally avoided looking at Deceit, who he could feel was staring at him. Considering your own moral compass, it seemed like an accurate fit. Well, I guess so. I don't know if I could be as brave as she is, though. Patton tried to deflect, and then he looked down at the patch in his hands and realized he was the last one in this round. I'm sorry. I tried, but I couldn't really think of a princess for you, Deceit. Deceit's slitted eye twitched. That's all right, Patton. Let's all think of something together, Roman was quick to assure him, then tapped his chin as he thought. What about Mulan? She lied about her gender so that she could join the army and protect her father, and even when she was revealed, she still did everything she could to fulfill her duty. Roman looked down and saw Deceit was smiling softly at him, and felt heat rush to his cheeks. Flying quickly schooled his features into a more neutral expression as the others looked to him. That works for me. Hero of China is a title I would be more than willing to hold. Deceit leaned back, throwing an arm across the back of the couch. Roman sighed with relief. He'd felt the tension in the room rise when Patton didn't have an answer, but thankfully he'd resolved it. Okay, let's go again. This time, Disney princes. They all passed and thought for a moment. Roman spoke up first, showing Logan his badge. I've got one. You, Logan, are the spitting image of Milo Thatch from Atlantis. Logan adjusted his glasses. Explain your thought process, please. Easy. You're a nerd, awkward, and obsessed with learning. Plus, he has glasses. You're underselling him a bit, Roman. Milo is the hero of the story, all because he studied dead languages in a civilization that most people considered unimportant. If he hadn't dedicated his life to it, despite people telling him his study was pointless, Atlantis' entire culture would have died out without anyone knowing, Deceit added, and the other sides all stared at him in surprise. What? I agree with Roman, but he wasn't hitting on the important parts of his character, he explained nonchalantly. Logan blinked. Did Deceit just indirectly call him important for the work he does? Well, thank you, he stuttered, cursing himself for his lack of coherency. Virgil watched this exchange with clenched teeth. Made his blood boil how smoothly Deceit could wrap the two of them around his little finger. One word that could remotely be construed as praise, and they were practically falling all over him. He wouldn't fall for it. He could only hope Patton wouldn't either. Well, Roman, I have you this round, and I know how much you would love to be compared to a strong, daring prince, so I'm not going to do that. Roman gasped, a hand over his heart in mock surprise, and Logan smirked. Instead, I'm going to say Roger from 101 Dalmatians. Roman tilted his head. Really? Wouldn't Patton fit that better? He loves dogs. You're musical, and you would absolutely compose a song about a villain. And if you were given the chance, you would completely change the course of your life to take care of dogs, Logan explained. The creative side let out a huff. Okay, I can't argue on the song thing, but Patton would do the same thing if he had 100 dogs suddenly show up on his doorstep. Logan rolled his eyes. I'm just playing by the rules of the game you created. I don't have Patton this round. I have you, and that's my choice. Fine. Virgil, go. You've got Patton. Prince Eric. Roman gasped for real this time. What? He screeched. Virgil shrugged. Patton's the kind of person who would pick up some random stranger off the beach and invite her to stay in his castle as an honored guest, and then fall in love with her in 3 days. Patton squealed and tackled Virgil in a side hug. Aw, you think so? Virgil, that's so sweet. Deceit raised an eyebrow. That was an interesting way to react to that explanation. Beside him, Roman was huffing with annoyance. I could be Prince Eric. Patton, can't we switch? Patton just giggled. I don't think that's part of the game, kiddo. Anyways, this is funny. I have Virgil this round, and I've got the perfect one. Bambi. Deceit stifled a laugh, not attempting to hide how widely he was grinning. Virgil whipped around and stared daggers at him. What are you laughing at, snakeface? Absolutely nothing. Go ahead. I'm dying to hear your reasoning, Patton. Virgil sneered, but Deceit stayed quiet as Patton explained, putting his hand over Virgil's to draw his attention back to him. When you first started really joining us in videos, you didn't exactly know what you were doing. A lot of stuff was new, and you didn't know how to deal with it, so you didn't at first. Not until you made friends who could help you. I mean, I guess. It felt wrong, but he just wanted to move on rather than argue against it. All right, well, that's it then. Let's pass and go again. Hold on just a moment, Virgil. Deceit hasn't given his answer yet. This game wouldn't be as effective unless everyone takes part, Logan pointed out, and Virgil inwardly cursed Logan 1,000 different ways. I can understand your mistake, Virgil. We all know how forgettable I am. The anxious side resisted the urge to hiss at him. He was trying to piss him off. Virgil wouldn't fall for it. Aladdin, Deceit answered. Ah, right, the prince who lies and steals to get what he wants. Virgil rolled his eyes. Deceit turned to him, eyes narrowed. A street rat who's been looked down on his whole life for who he is, something he was born as and has no control over, who was forced to steal and lie to stay alive in a society that treats him like dirt. Someone who was given the chance of a lifetime to turn himself around, but was forced to hide a big part of himself in order to integrate into that society and finally be accepted by someone who will love him regardless of his past or who he is. Deceit met Virgil's eyes evenly, his face a mask. Beside him, Patton was shifting uncomfortably, staring at his feet. It was an unexpectedly candid answer, and he could feel the guilt stirring in his chest. The room slowly got colder as they stared at each other, the tension hanging like a thick fog in the air. "How is it that you managed to be even more edgy than me?" Virgil quipped, and the room's temperature rose again as Deceit laughed, a sharp noise breaking the awkward silence. "I can only dream of being as edgy as you, my dear Virgil," Deceit purred, and Virgil was glad Patton was between them, because otherwise he would take a swing and knock that smug look right off his face. "Okay, let's move on," Roman broke in, passing his badge over. They all swapped, though Virgil was grumbling the whole way that this whole idea was stupid. "This time, let's do side characters. Comic relief, background characters, anyone but the main characters." Deceit smirked and held up the badge he received, and Virgil braced himself. Great, what horrible character would Deceit compare him to piss him off now? Eeyore. What? Virgil glanced at him. That was tame. What was he playing at? Why? The anxious side ventured cautiously. The lying side smirk. Always looks on the dark side and brings up the negatives to every decision. And he's still loved by his friends despite that, Patton interrupted Deceit, putting his arm around Virgil and pulling him into a tight hug. And he's still loved by his friends despite that, Deceit parroted quietly. And while Virgil and Patton missed it as Virgil struggled to get out of Patton's grip, Logan and Roman caught it and shared a look. If Deceit was upset or angry, he didn't show it as he looked over to Roman and grinned widely. Your turn. Roman, who'd been debating, hit his fist against his palm and grinned. That's it, the Cheshire Cat. That's a rather surface observation, Roman. Are you just referring to his smile? Logan asked, and Roman shook his head. No, well, yes, that's part of it. You have a very unique smile, but it's more than that. In the movie, the cat appears just to confuse Alice and say things that make sense to him, but nobody else. Roman grinned a little like a Cheshire himself. You always keep to yourself and get us to run around in circles trying to understand you. Oh, but it's so much more fun that way, Deceit snickered. See, that's what I mean! Roman gestured and Deceit took it in stride. You've got me all figured out, don't you? The lying side humored him and Roman shrugged, happy with himself. Tinkerbell. The three of them turned to look to Virgil, who was staring at Roman intently. I beg your pardon? Logan asked. Roman. I choose Tinkerbell. Because I'm magical and wondrous? Why, thank you, Virgil. Because you're only pleased with yourself when someone pays attention to you. Otherwise you sulk and throw a tantrum. Roman's eyes widened, and he leaned back, trying to play it off with a laugh. I only wish for the world to recognize my talents. Deceit's eye twitched again. Yeah, right, Princey. I have myself this round, and I think I'm like Mrs. Potts from Beauty and the Beast. Patton broke in, holding his heart patch joyfully. She's kind and a mother, and she always looks on the bright side and tries to cheer up Belle when she stays in the castle, he said all in one breath, and the others nodded along. If any of them would be able to comfort someone in the situation Belle found herself in, it would be him. The irony wasn't lost on Deceit that he'd compared Logan to Belle not half an hour earlier. That leaves you, Logan. You've yourself, right? Patton asked, and Logan nodded, holding up the brain patch. Yes, I think I'll choose Sebastian from The Little Mermaid. He's organized, task-oriented, and his plans are always ruined by someone who decides to go running off on an adventure. He glared pointedly at Roman, who just rolled his eyes. Life is so boring the way you live it. I have to keep you on your toes. I could certainly do without it, the logical side grumbled. Roman glanced around and realized they'd all gone. Well, that went faster than I thought. We can start a movie now, if you want. Just a moment, Roman. We still have one more rotation, and I have the perfect idea. Deceit interrupted him, and his tone put Virgil immediately on edge. Oh, yeah? What's that? Well, we've done princesses, princes, and side characters, but we have one more rotation and one more group. Why don't we do one last round and pick from Disney villains? Roman chewed his lip, looking over at Virgil nervously. I wasn't going to. I mean, Virgil... Right, I understand. You don't want to compare dear Virgil to a villain given his history. But if we all do it, then it's fair, right? We won't single anyone out. Deceit's voice was smooth, convincing, and Roman would be lying if he said he hadn't thought about villains in this game. Well, what do you guys think? We don't have to if you don't want to. Roman turned the question on the rest of them, unsure what result he himself wanted. I, for one, believe it would be a good exercise. Disney villains especially have a wide range of characteristics and motivations. Exploring those darker themes could be interesting, Logan put in, shifting in his seat to get more comfortable. And it's just a thought exercise, after all. We're not saying anyone in this room is actually a villain, right? Deceit added, watching Patton's reactions carefully. You know Virgil wouldn't agree with him just on principle, but Roman and Logan were both for the idea. It would be majority vote, but Roman wouldn't dare go against his beloved fatherly side. If Patton said no, Roman would change his mind to please him. It made Deceit crazy. Patton knew he was being watched from all sides, and he bit his lip. On the one hand, he wanted to push Deceit away and just start watching a movie. At least then, he wouldn't have to talk to him anymore. He could lean against Virgil and try to forget he was there at all, and try to ignore the butterflies in his stomach that just wouldn't go away. On the other hand, Roman was looking at him with just such raw hope in his eyes that he couldn't bear to say no. Well, I guess it is just a game we're playing. Roman lit up. He hadn't realized he'd been holding his breath until he felt his lungs burning. Okay then, let's do it. They all passed their badges, and Patton realized as soon as Deceit took hold of his badge what he'd gotten himself into. He felt his heart stop. How had he forgotten who exactly Deceit would be answering for? I suppose I'll start then, Logan said after the room fell into a tense silence. Deceit, I believe you fit Tamatoa from Moana well. That actually caught Deceit off guard, though he hit it well enough. Really? Please, elaborate on that, Logan. Certainly. To begin, while Tamatoa is certainly an antagonist in the movie, and his actions toward the protagonists aren't exactly excusable, upon many viewings, Logan cast a glance at Roman, I can conclude that the main motivation for his actions is selfish desire. He gathers shiny things and keeps them in his cave, and doesn't let anyone touch them. Deceit resisted the urge to rub at the scratches that were slowly healing on his face. None of them had mentioned it until now, and it wasn't for lack of noticing, he was sure. He narrowed his eyes curiously. Interesting. Are you calling me selfish for how I keep my room, Logan? Logan wasn't intimidated and merely shrugged. It's simply a comparison. Am I incorrect? There was a pause. Not entirely, Deceit answered, tugging at his hat that had begun to slip down over his head. All right, then. Virgil, would you like to go next? You have my badge. Virgil shrunk in on himself. Come on, Teach. I don't want to compare you to a villain. Logan gave him a soft, rare smile. It's quite all right. It's just a thought exercise, Virgil. The anxious side took a breath. He damned Logan. If only he had kept his mouth shut, he wouldn't need to deal with this. I guess maybe Frollo? Logan raised an eyebrow. From Hunchback of Notre Dame. Interesting. Why? Virgil stared at his shoes. I don't know. He's smart, and he doesn't show his emotions easily. Well, I don't believe I've ever displayed the lust he does, but aside from that, I think I understand where you're coming from. Yeah. Virgil shifted, uncomfortable. Patton nudged him subtly with his elbow, and Virgil turned up the corner of his mouth to show them he was all right. Roman, why don't you go next? Logan encouraged, taking over the activity since Roman was sitting still, staring at the small storm cloud badge in his hand. Virgil. He'd lost any and all bravado he'd had before, and now he just stared across the sectional with apologetic eyes. Just get it over with, Princey. Maleficent. Technically, yes, she's the villain, but if you look at the original story, it was actually the king and queen who insulted her first, and she even gave them a chance to fix their mistake, and only cursed them when they did it again. Not to mention, she gave the princess an out for her curse, Roman explained quickly, like the very words burned him as he spoke. Virgil shrugged, though inwardly he smelt a small prick of warmth. He did everything he could to make his choice a good one for him, and to not offend or scare him. When had Roman gotten so careful about not offending him? Oh, does that make it my turn, then? Deceit hummed as Roman fell silent. The lying side grinned widely, leaning forward into Patton's personal bubble and twirling the heart patch between his fingers. I thought of the perfect one for you, Patton. How about Hans from Frozen? What? Patton exclaimed, jerking away from Deceit. But he's horrible! He lies to Anna and tries to kill her! He tells her everything she wants to hear, encourages her to go after her sister, her only living family, and that he can manage her kingdom by himself while she's gone. All by himself. Patton shrunk slightly under the intense gaze from Deceit's golden eye. I don't understand. What are you playing at? Virgil growled, his voice low. Deceit didn't spare him a glance. He took over, and he did it all under the radar. Nobody ever suspected what a horrible person he was inside. He kept up the facade as long as he needed to get what he wanted. That's it, you piece of shit! The anxious side exploded, pushing Patton to the side as he stood up and grabbed Deceit's collar, pulling him to stand face to face. You are not allowed to insult him! You're saying all this stupid shit about Patton when really you're the one you're talking about. Virgil, please, calm down. Violence will not solve anything. Logan stood as well, trying to step forward, but Deceit held up a hand. Don't worry, Logan. Virgil's just a little too into this game, after all. Isn't that right? Come now, Virgil. It's just an exercise. I already said we aren't the villains we name. Don't you think you're overreacting? Virgil hissed, but was suddenly acutely aware that the rest of the sides were staring at him with bated breath, waiting to see if he would really take a swing. Against all his instincts, he didn't run away, nor did he punch the daylights out of Deceit. He forced his hand open and let Deceit fall back into the couch. Now then, we only have one more to go, don't we? Patton, you're the big finale. Patton shied away from Deceit, holding the red and gold badge against his chest. I can't compare Roman to a villain. He's a prince. That's just wrong. Yeah, why don't we call the game here? Virgil jumped in, but out of the corner of his eye, he saw Roman deflate a little. Deceit caught it too. Well, that's not fair. We can't leave Roman out of this round. But I've got an idea if you need help, Patton. The deceitful side offered sincerely. We don't need... How about Gaston? Roman turned his head. You think... You're strong, handsome, and loved by all. The prince sucked in a breath. Those aren't really what make him a villain. We never said you had to relate to the characteristics that make them a villain, Roman. Are you so upset by that arbitrary label that you don't want to associate at all with any of the things that make him the character he is? Roman stared at him confused. Where did that come from? Deceit smiled. There's a bit more to life than pure good and pure evil, Roman. Then Deceit stood and stretched, ignoring how the rest of the sides were staring at him. I'll be right back. Why don't you all start the movie without me? He walked out into the bathroom down the hall. The four of them sat in stunned silence. So, what movie should we watch tonight?